There's only so much you can squeeze out of a debt cycle, and we're there globally. So when you can't lower interest rates anymore, we know that the power of having the effect on asset prices going up because interest rates go down, in other words, they has a present value effect that causes interest rates to, lower interest rates cause asset prices. We're reaching that limit. The inability to produce stimulation by lowering interest rates that makes debt service payments lower and causes spending is at a limit. The wealth gap is part of that limit. So you can't lower interest rates more materially. Maybe they go the other way. And you also are at a limited quantitative easing because the spreads are limited. In other words, the way quantitative easing works is that somebody comes in and buys an asset, the central bank, they buy a bond, they sell that bond, they want to buy something else, causes all the assets to go up. So globally, those forces that were behind are no longer behind us. So the real question I think that people should think of is, are we at the end of a long-term debt cycle? I think that Japan is one step ahead of Europe, and Europe is one step or two steps ahead of the United States. And the United States is probably two steps ahead of China in terms of a limited ability to produce stimulation, to produce that kind of growth. So everybody will have a lower growth rate than we're used to.
Tim, do you have any more optimistic view on what that number could ultimately be?
I think when I left the New York Fed like ages ago, feels like decades ago, I think the Fed economists then thought the U.S. economy was a 2.25% potential growth economy, long-term potential growth. And I would say most economists today are in a raised range. You have to recognize that demographics and slower productivity growth are just big, powerful secular trends, apart from the things Ray was focusing on too. And that just brings a lot of gravity to what's possible in these economies. It's like a world where people say it's a world of diminished expectations, slow growth, low return. I think the scarier things are really about politics, about the scary erosion of the pragmatic center in politics, diminished capacity to make sensible economic choices on things governments really have to do, and the erosion in the Keynesian arsenal, or the erosion in the policy tools available to help offset the effects of a next recession, a moderate shock. Those two things are very consequential, very damaging, very scary things. If all we faced was a world where demographics were going to produce somewhat slower growth, but it was more stable, durable, that would be fine. But those two other things make it a little more perilous.